Right now, let's bring in Johnathan Schanzer, who's a senior vice president at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, is a former counterterrorism analyst at the U.S. Treasury Department as well. So one of the topics that came up, John, as we were sitting here watching at both the State Department and the White House was these casualty numbers that are being put out by the Gaza Health Ministry, otherwise known as Hamas, and how the White House does not trust them. Are they right to not trust them?
They are 100% right not to trust the Gaza Health Ministry. They're 100% right not to trust Hamas. But here's the thing. The way that Hamas uses their health industry, so to speak, is incredibly cynical. Most people don't know this, but Hamas's primary military base of operations is under the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City. In other words, they operate maybe four stories below the ground, and this is where a lot of that information comes out from. At the end of the day, they are using human shields. They are using the Gaza population, 2.2 million people, to manipulate the rest of the world. And so the administration is 100% right to ignore their numbers. And I will say that at some point, the Israelis are almost certainly going to have to surround that hospital if they are going to try to force a surrender of Hamas.
Yeah, because it should be pointed out that despite the fact that many Hamas leaders have been killed in the Israeli airstrikes, their command and control infrastructure remains intact. Another little piece of business that came out, Fox News has confirmed this, that the United States, and I guess it's through Anthony Blinken, is in talks with Qatar about Qatar re-examining, if you will, its relationship with Hamas. And we should point out that Hamas's political leadership is living large in Doha. Do you think that this will amount to anything?
This really needs to. What the Qataris have been doing now for the last 10+ years is absolutely outrageous. They want to be a respected country. They want to be welcomed around the world. And here they are sponsoring Hamas. They give them more than $100 million a year. Their political leadership is based there. And by the way, if you think that it's only Hamas, let me just remind you that the Taliban operate out of Doha, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and a whole range of other terrorist groups have found safe haven inside Qatar. And right now, these are the guys that are negotiating with the United States for the release of the hostages. They are playing arsonist and firefighter, and the United States has allowed it now for 10 years. This has to stop.
One other thing that this administration, the Biden administration, is trying to do is cut off funding for Hamas. It gets money to the tune of $2.5 billion a year through various sources. The administration plans on trying to do it through sanctions on the various entities that support Hamas. Is that going to be effective?
Look, it can be effective, but it has to start with Iran. Iran gives Hamas something like $200, maybe $250 million a year. We have to stop giving money to the Iranians. We have to stop giving sanctions relief to the Iranians. It is a pass-through. Every time we try to make a deal, whether it's a $6 billion in a hostage swap or whatever else we've given them over the years, it is a sieve. It's going straight to Hamas and Hezbollah. After that, we got to hit the Turks. After that, we have to hit the Qataris, the Malaysians, the Algerians, the Kuwaitis. There's a whole bunch of countries out there that consider themselves to be nominal American allies, and they're out there funding Hamas and supporting massacres along the lines of what we saw on 10/7.
You and I were talking offline during the briefing. You believe that there will be some news about the hostages in the next couple of 3 days?
Look, there is clearly a slowdown right now in terms of the pace of the Israeli ground invasion. Everybody in Israel is waiting for it. Obviously, the world is really nervous about it. My sense is that there's probably going to have to be some kind of movement. The Qataris are scrambling to try to show their worth, and the Israelis are obviously desperate to see the release of at least some of these hostages. So my sense is that there will probably be one trade that comes over the next couple of days, and that will probably be followed by that ground invasion, regardless of what the Qataris want or what the United States want.
Now, when you talk about a trade, Hamas has said it would trade some hostages, and we don't know whether it would be non-Israeli hostages or Israeli hostages for Hamas terrorists who are in Israeli custody. Do you think that any kind of swap might follow along those lines?
I mean, look, I think that right now it looks as if there's been greater value placed on dual nationals. I think, by the way, that's not a really great message to send to the Israelis that people that are dual nationals are worth more. But I think at the end of the day, this is going to be about what is being done through that specific channel and what the Qataris are able to squeeze out of Hamas. They should have a lot of leverage. They should have a lot more leverage than they have right now. But one thing that I will just note that the Israelis are going to be very nervous about, there are reports that just came out just a few minutes ago suggesting that the Iranians are trying to gain custody of some of these hostages. If that is the case, just wait to see how the Israelis respond.
Yeah, that would be a troubling escalation. Just real quick, if you would, just to finish this off here. The ground operation. Clearly, Hamas is trying to forestall this by dripping out hostage releases. When do you think Israel goes in?
My guess is that it's just a matter of days. It will not take very long for the Israelis at this point to mobilize. They've already indicated that everything is in place, including their plan. So they'll try to get a few hostages out of this. And I think the other thing is, of course, having the U.S. Comfortable with the plan and having enough firepower in the region to hold off Iran and Hezbollah so that this doesn't escalate into a regional war.
This is far from over. There's no question about that.
No doubt.
Johnathan Schanzer, good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
All right.